Recently there is a huge success of freestyle chess. What's your view on that? Is it the future of chess, or is it too early to say? Will it replace classical chess too, sooner or later?
I think it's a bit tricky to say the 960 replacing classical chess, because when we say classical chess, we typically mean time control. Yeah, so you can play 960 with 2 hours. So this is, regarding the opening position, so I mean technically it's, you know, so what we call classical chess position is one of the 960. Position number 518. I think in the long term, it's a natural process of 960 grabbing more and more space, because I mean I'm not following very closely the latest development, but I just in St. Louis just, you know, a week ago, 10 days ago, I talked to some of the top players, and you know, they 1 hour and then told me that there are many openings now that have been just, you know, just exhausted. So it's some of the positions, you know, just you know exactly what's happening. So 960, you know, offers unlimited opportunities to play real chess without, you know, game being dried out. Because you look at most of the openings now, they try to avoid any complications. So that's why it's very much like, you know, the tabias. They have to avoid some sharp lines, and if you have tabias, you know, some kind of, you know, positions like, you know, in Berlin or in Italian, or, you know, change, you know, Carlsbad structures I apologize for using chess terms, chess professionals. So why not to start, you know, from scratch? I think the biggest challenge for 960 is how to educate the public, because we have, you know, massive following now. Chess events online are very popular, but I know from commentators, same experience in St. Louis, that it's very difficult to actually explain, you know, what's happening, because the chess education is based on certain, you know, foundational elements, and one of them is opening position, which has its own geometry, the weak spots, control of the center. So, and in 960, many of these elements, they just, you know, they should be disregarded. So I think this is one of the interesting challenges, how to prepare people, potential audience, to be more receptive to 960. And if we find the right solution, so by using this online technology, so and modifying the introduction to the game of chess for million newcomers, I would say that, you know, 960 could offer chess, you know, this breathing space for many years to come.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm an editor for HR Square magazine, and it's a tremendous honor to meet you. You once said that all computers or data cannot figure out the right questions to ask. So I would like to ask, in a business perspective, what are the questions leaders should be asking themselves?
Can you be more specific? So this is the.
I think the quote comes from a chess environment where you said with additional help from computer and artificial intelligence, these data will not be able to ask you the right questions. That's the question.
Yes, and I don't think that anything has changed since this as I said, and while we see considerable progress, you know, with LLM and ChatGPT, but there's still the fundamental issues that has not been resolved. So the distribution issue, for instance. So let's see if you go deep, you know, just down and just start analyzing the performance of this new iteration of machines. Fundamental problems have not been resolved. So I could address you to one of the episodes of my recent podcast that I recorded for Atlantic with Gary Marcus, who is one of the top experts in the field, having very being, you know, one of the leaders of the crowd of skeptics, and when you look at the financial return on the investment, we hear just not complaints, but let's say it's the sounds of disappointment. It's definitely not what people expected a few years ago, which is typical because it's with computers you always have just a jump and then a plateau, and we are now at a plateau, and again more and more people recognize that you should not ask too much from computers. They could make huge difference, but they cannot solve all the problems, and the privilege of asking right questions or relevant questions, it still stays on our side of the fence.
Hi, Mr. Kasparov, very nice to meet you. I recently graduated as engineer, and one mindset, one similarity between chess players and engineers in mindset is that we are lifelong learners and that we have a passion in studying new things. So I wanted to ask you if you still have that passion as when you became a champion, and if there is something that you're actively trying to learn right now.
That's definitely not part of the game of chess. I can tell you, this is what I'm learning. But I think the learning process never ends, because if you believe that you have nothing else to learn, that's it. So this is, and since I always believe that the purpose of life is to make a difference, first on the chessboard and then beyond that. So learning is important, and I'm a very hungry consumer of information, and anything that I can learn, anything new that I can find out, it's most welcome. So this is these days, very often I learn from my kids. Yes, there's certain things, just in the computer world, so you better ask them. I know what I know. I know what I don't know. I know how to make this difference, and just to make this borderline. But I always try to expand the size of the territory of things I know, just to be more, just to not to be redundant, which is very easy now in these days.
Thank you.
Yes? No.
Can I ask you a geopolitical question? How do you look at the efforts of Mr. Trump to stop the war in Ukraine? Is he able to do that, or how do you look at that?
First, we should understand that this is the ending wars for Mr. Trump is a way to make business. So this is not about ending war, but it's about making money and getting glory. Everything that Trump does and says, it's about money and glory for him. I'm not here to start counting how many wars he ended, but in every arrangement, which he calls, by the way, he always talks about deals. He uses terms, when he talks about Ukrainian territories, he talks real estate, properties, which again, it's somehow Dr. Freud should be happy, because it reflects exactly the values or the structure of these negotiations in his mind. I don't think that the war in Ukraine can end by applying the same tactics as in the Middle East. I'm not saying that war in the Middle East is over, that's another story, but at least there's a partial success. They try to keep this very fragile now ceasefire. Also, we should also see the difference between ceasefire and the hostilities and the end of the war. But the war in Ukraine, has its root cause, and here it's an exceptional moment. I would agree with Vladimir Putin. The war cannot end without eliminating the root cause, and the root cause is the nature of Russian imperialism. And as long as Putin believes he can continue the war, which is, just in his mind, is a way to expand Russian influence, not necessarily just territories, but Russian influence, and going back to the geopolitical realities of the Cold War. I'm not telling you that, I'm simply translating what he has been saying, reiterating, and his propaganda keeps repeating it. Since 2005, the Russian doctrine included the concept to push NATO back to 1997 borders. That's since Putin's speech in 2005 at the joint session of Russian Parliament on April 25th. So when he said, bluntly said, the collapse of the Soviet Union was the greatest geopolitical catastrophe of the century. And in 2007, he publicly, just looking straight in the eyes of the leaders of the free world, Bush 43 included, in Munich, a security conference, said NATO must go back to 1997 borders. So as long as Putin can continue the war, it will continue. And obviously, he with Mr. Trump, he has enough leverage to drag him into these negotiations. For me, and I just said, you follow my Twitter. For me, this is not negotiation about the end of war. It's about just how Trump's business partners like Mr. Witkoff can receive some benefits. It's also very important to see who is negotiating on America's behalf. I mean, when you talk about America-Russia negotiating, I mean, it has to be Marco Rubio, it has to be the Secretary of State, but it's always Witkoff, and that means it's about business. It's not about America, it's not about Russia, not Ukraine, it's about business interests. So I think that the war, there's a chance that there might be end of hostilities, though I still think it's unlikely. But it doesn't mean that the war will end, because Putin is at war with, not just with Ukraine, with the free world. And his goal was and is, and will be, just to basically destroy NATO and the current security arrangements in Europe. So that's why I will not be surprised if in months to come I'll try to violate NATO borders, not just in air, not in water, but on the ground. So I think the small incursion in one of the Baltic states is, I wouldn't rule it out. I wouldn't bet on that, my bottom dollar, but I think it's quite realistic. At the end of the day, it's not about winning the war against NATO. Putin is not an idiot, so he understands that militarily Russia cannot, just having Ukraine as part of this front line, they can win the war. But to illustrate that NATO is impotent and Article 5 doesn't work, it's very, very, very tempting. So the war will not end as long as Putin, keeps resources to continue. Because if you just look at the Russian society from top to the bottom, the war is like air they breathe. Everything in Russia today is about war. Whether you go to the top of the government, whether they talk about business, about economy, about finance, or you go to kindergarten, from kids aged 6, 7, or 8 years old, they're already being brainwashed, hating Ukrainians, hating the West, and also preparing for the other wars. I don't have to just to invent things. You simply follow the main political statements and the way the propaganda has been conducted. It's all about continuation of the war. Every decision made by Russian government is about just future wars. So just trying to encourage women to have more kids. So basically the abortions that has been, it's not banned in Russia, but many clinics simply don't offer this option anymore. So they just pay more and more money for even for college girls to have kids. You have in Russian churches. It's a daily, if not hourly, propaganda war. So we're just talking about the mother Russia and its rights to acquire territories and to kill. They didn't use the word infidels, but that's very much that's the sense. And the Russian economy, Russian industries, they all just it's all war. So if you imagine for a moment that Putin wants to get out, it's almost impossible. Probably it is impossible, because war became his legacy.
Mr. Kasparov, how concerned or worried are you coming back to Europe? Concerned about your safety, your life?
It's an interesting question. So you mean in New York I should not be concerned, yes? I'm not sure, what's safer these days, you have Mr. Trump in America and I live on a green card in New York, so here at least, I'm a Croatian citizen, so at least I'm, a citizen of Europe, so it is. Look, I'm trying to be as philosophical as I can. So, naturally, if they want to go after you, there's nothing we can do about it. So, but you don't want to make it easy. So since I'm indicted terrorist in Russia, and recently they opened another case, which is, again, I'm not alone. I'm not trying to portray myself as a hero. These days, you know, in Russian opposition, in immigration, unless you have at least one criminal case against you, you're not taken seriously. People will start asking questions. So many of us have at least, you know, two, and the biggest case they opened a few days ago, yes, Khodorkovsky, myself, and many others, it's for an attempt to seize power illegally. That's okay. Nobody takes it seriously, but the question is, and I saw this as many of my colleagues, just that are not as famous as Khodorkovsky or myself, as asking, so what if Interpol takes it seriously? So we even just writing a letter. Hopefully not. And again, I believe that, you know, my European, my fame and my, you know, just its European passport offers me some protection. Having said that, so there are many places I wouldn't go even in Europe. Naturally, I wouldn't go to Hungary. I would not go to Slovakia. Therefore, I would not go to Turkey. I would not go to Dubai. Okay, that's already outside of Europe. Yeah. I would probably not go to some other place in Europe. So I would be I wouldn't probably go to Yemen. Again, even in Hungary, it's not about Orban, you know, basically handing me over to Putin. But all they have to do is just move the other way. So this is, and we know that in many of these countries, that's why I mentioned Vienna. So the government is not actively interfering with the work of Putin's networks. So does it make me comfortable? No. But again, what can I do? I'm still in more just preferable position than many of my colleagues. And of course, you know, I'm still around while Naval and Nemtsov are not.
If you could play one game from your career again, not to change the result, but just to relive the feeling, which one would you pick and why?
Oh, it's hard to answer the question. So most likely it's one of the Karpov games. So, well, game 24, Moscow, 1985. Game 24 in Sevilla. Game 16 in Moscow. So there's quite a collection of games that just I would like to relive. Probably just it's the still nothing can beat, you know, the moment of winning the title. So probably back to November 9, 1985. Soon will be 40th anniversary, believe it or not.
Thank you.
Mr. Kasparov, tomorrow you will be part of the event of your next move. What excites you to be part of this event?
Oh, I'm very happy that we go back to the good old days. That's when you had this unique combination of kids and business people and politicians. I think that's the right moment now because it's the interest for the game of chess has risen dramatically. And again, I'm very happy that we can do something. So this is reuniting with Nigel. So this is to make people happy. Yeah, and also you see the difference. You know, that's when we started. Bart de Wever was the mayor of Antwerp. Now he's hopefully will join as a prime minister. So hopefully maybe this event help him.
Do you remember the last game against him?
No, I don't remember the last game, but I realized he looked different.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
In chess, do you think it's a problem, the situation of the last few years, when the best player of the world is not a world champion? Is it bad for the image of chess? Or are we exaggerating?
It is a very, you know, again, I would say philosophical question, because I don't think there's a simple answer. In an ideal world, you would like the world champion to be the strongest player, or at least somebody who took the title by beating the strongest player. And that was, by the way, the original concept of the title. When we go back to 1886, it's nearly 140 years ago, this is when Stein and Stuttgart won the first match. I mean, it's worth mentioning that the match took place only after Morphy died. As long as Paul Morphy was alive, nobody was willing to recognize, though Steinitz or Zuckertor, they were just the strongest players. definitely Steiner since late 60s or 9th century was a leading player. But again, it took, you know, just its more of his death to more of his removal, by biological removal from the field, even again mentally, because people still thought, you know, there was this ghost of the greatest player. So that's why I think the idea was to establish the mechanism of public recognition that the world champion is the strongest player, and throughout this the history of the world champions. And for me, again, I always apologize for Ding and Gukesh. The story ends with Magnus Carlsen. It was always about the strongest player on the world, or in case of Rus Överlöchen or Petrosyan, not sure that in '66 he was the strongest player. Yeah, or, okay, I apologize, I don't think Kramnik was the strongest player, but all of them won the title fair and square by beating the world champion. So again, it was a transition. Now, Magnus made a decision that I understand. I may not approve, but I understand. It didn't make much sense for him to play. So this is enjoying life. So and just because eventually one day you lose, and he saw that probably it's a good moment to walk away. But also the rhythm of the game, following the rhythm of life. You know, this has changed, and now the whole system that this is of qualifications. Even in its modern form and shape, it's totally outdated. So chess needs new forms, and as we tried with the Grand Chess Tour. I think this, as you pointed out, is the 1960s gaining momentum. So I would say that the classical history, use the word classical, of the World Championship, that where the world champion was the strongest player, and it was always, you know, the challenge that could bring another player to the top by beating the world champion. The story is over, and I wouldn't lose my sleep over it.
Thank you.
And coming back to Putin, you said he has a kind of leverage over Trump. What kind of leverage, and can you explain that?
Look, its question is, you know, whether we should start speculating about what leverage, or simply say it is a leverage.
It is a leverage.
Yeah, that's this. Yeah, so you can go back to 1987, the first visit of American flamboyant multimillionaire with Czech wife to Moscow, and ask a question whether KGB could miss the opportunity. I mean, they definitely tried. I mean, something I don't know whether it succeeded or not, but I tell you, as somebody who grew up in the Soviet Union, they would have not missed the chance. So whether this individual was receptive to this kind of approaches, likely. Whether we can say that some of the facts of his biography later could prove that this connection has been established, probably. There were several bankruptcies that ended up, you know, by mysterious intervention of other forces, you know, financial institutions that saved him. So, and today, we know that whatever he does, or even whatever he says, it's never critical of Vladimir Putin. Which is, again, of its own, it's very peculiar. Because last time I checked, Donald Trump spared no one. He talked, you know, just in the most diminishing forms about anyone, including, you know, his own colleagues, you know, from the GOP. Or about, you know, global leaders. Less critical about dictators, of course. He was probably less critical about Xi Jinping and Kim Jong-un than about European, for instance, leaders. But still critical. There's only one person on this planet that was never criticized by Donald Trump. And he never did anything, and that's, again, it's clear, never did anything to hurt Vladimir Putin or Vladimir Putin's strategic interest. So combining all these things, we should say, yes, there is a leverage. And every day, you know, we just see more and more confirmation that there's some sort of negotiations. They always, you know, just continue, and you have, I mentioned Vitkov on one side, but on the other side, it's not Lavrov, but it's Dmitriev. It's Putin's, you know, Putin's Vitkov, analog, Putin's wallet. So there's definitely these relations are very unusual for Donald Trump. there are always limitations for Trump to fulfill Putin's expectations. But what we read about the latest meeting in the White House, when Trump tried to push Zelensky to make these unreasonable concessions, again tells us that there's something there that is making Trump to go against his, by the way, his own strategic interest, but also, which is interesting, it's against American public opinion. That's also atypical for Trump. He always very sensitive to what, okay, forget about public opinion, GOP. Trump needs his base to follow him. And the latest poll, the last time I checked yesterday, shows that the numbers are almost the same, 72, 73% on Democrats and Republicans. 72% Democrats and 70% Republicans believe that the fresh sanctions needed, and also, support to Ukraine should increase. So by doing so, just by ignoring it, Trump, again, probably has something else in mind than simply following his own modus operandi.
So, when you lost against Deep Blue, that day...
Eventually. No,
eventually.
It took 45 minutes to ask the question.
It's one of the most historical, iconic moments as an example that shows that the computer is getting better at some tasks than human beings. Do you have yourself a different iconic historical moment that shows that computers are getting better than us?
How old are you?
I'm 24.
Okay, that's yeah, okay. You were not around, so that's yes. So it's the the match, the second match, the first one that I won in Philadelphia in '96, and the second I lost in New York, I think had more of a psychological importance. I regularly meet people at the conferences, because I speak roughly twice a month about AI, about human-machine collaboration, and I regularly meet people in the audience that they are probably in their 40s, who tell me stories, same story, that is, the match had such an impact on them to actually move into study computers or just to join a computer company. So that's 40s, mid 40s. So that's probably right age. So over years, I came to the conclusion that what I believe in 1997 would be my curse. Now is that probably a blessing, because I could feel that I made just personal sacrifice for the good of humanity. So and it was chess-wise it was not an important moment. So if you start to analyze the real watershed moment was actually '96, because by the game one that I lost, okay, I won 3 more games, I won the match, but the game one that I lost, that was already kind of the warning, or it's written on just a sign on the wall with capital letters. The end is coming. Yeah, because if machine could be the world champion, sitting world champion in I'm not sure 7 hours game in what's called classical chess, even in one game, that meant that the rest would be just a matter of time. Ironically, nobody actually read this warning, and it's interesting that there were a few psychological mistakes made by top players, myself included. Is that because we played with computers, already just before my match with Deep Blue. Moreover, there were some very painful defeats against computers in blitz or rapid chess. So that's why it's not just as sensational that machine could compete and it would beat top players. In 1994, there was Intel World Blitz Championship in Munich. And the first, I tied for second with Fritz, I think Fritz 2. I'm not sure Fritz 2 or Fritz 2. So just ahead of, Anand and many, just Kramnik and just, many other just top players. So I beat it in the final. But then just the same year, so I lost to another program in rapid chess. So in blitz and rapid chess, there were already quite painful defeats. So somehow we were under the impression that it's because we had little time. Not just making a simple extrapolation. You have more time, machine has more time. It's amazing that it's just the kind of a fetish of, oh, it's a long game, we can avoid making mistakes. No, it's just you know, you add time, and 1996 match again was this moment. It was I think it was really a turning point now from historical perspective. Now in 2025 we can say that. 97 had this again, it was a PR effect. Though again, when you look at the quality of the games in 1997 match, you use your chess app, it will be laughing loud, just you know, and there's many moves. I remember this is when we analyzed it a few years ago. Just now I'm sure machines are better. We just did the game 5, which I pushed. You know, I thought I could have won, but eventually it ended a draw. And I remember the commentators in the room. Oh, great game, Gary pushed. You know, and machine risen. The Deep Blue fought, and Deep Blue found amazing escape, a fantastic game. Fantastic game. And I just started looking at this, and it tells you, by the way, this game was equal. Deep Blue made a mistake. Gary missed win. Deep Blue, so it's and then after this match, I played 2 more matches with Deep Fritz and Deep Junior in 2003. I think they were stronger than Deep Blue, but I was better prepared. Both ended as a tie, but I knew it would be over. By 2005, I think when Kramnik lost to second match to Fritz, and Mickey Adams was crushed by Hydra. So that was over. So today, you know, it's kind of, it's almost insulting to watch. You know, this is some of the exercises. Have you ever watched, you know, the top players playing blitz on their phones? 3 minutes against a chess engine that is specially designed, having 1-piece handicap. I mean, I saw Vachela Graf just playing, you know, in Bucharest. So they're playing this is 3 minutes, but you need a specially designed program because it has to avoid exchanging queens, just to play with handicap. But it's amazing. You have, you know, there's a top blitz players in the world, you know, playing, you know, this is with extra piece. And they're not losing all the games, but they're still behind. But emotions, you know, just aside, it's natural. Machines make fewer mistakes. That's the most important thing. Making fewer mistakes than humans. And I don't think that we should cry over spilled milk. I think that's chess served, you know, it's a very important purpose of helping to understand how machines and humans can cooperate most effectively.
What mistake did you learn the most of? Do you have a best mistake?
You mean in my private life or just work? You know, asking somebody who married 3 times, you know, that's not fair.
And work-wise?
Look, it's the mistakes are being made. So I just, you know, I think it's very important not to be overwhelmed by this sense of mistakes being made, because I look at my life and I say, okay, I could have done this, or this, but then we'll know better of life.